Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you in other time zones, and welcome to this Living in Oneness Summit call. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Coordinating Director for Humanities team, and I'm so excited about today's program. It's great to be here with you. I'm going to be interviewing a very special guest and friend today, Arthur Joseph. We're going to be talking about something Arthur created called vocal awareness. In vocal awareness, we learn how to recognize and develop the richness and integrity of our voice, both inner, the deeper self, and outer, how you communicate with others, consciously, strategically, at all times. I know you're going to enjoy this program. We have more than 15,000 registered for today's call. Thank you so much, everyone, for prioritizing time to be here for this important conversation. As always, this call is interactive with each of you, our listeners, so we want to invite you to put your questions in the question window on Instant Teleseminar. I promise that we'll get to at least one or two of your questions during the hour. A little about Humanities team as we get started. In Humanities team, we see there is only one presence, the divine, and see we are all offspring and expressions of the divine. This means God's love, light, grace, and peace are ours because there is no separation and we share the same essence. Since our founding in 2003, we've done our best to live as one with the divine, each other, and our earth home. We don't need to be perfect or even excellent at this. It doesn't have to feel heavy. We must only do our best. When we talk about oneness with the divine, of course, this is true for all of life, not just humanity. This has repercussions for how we see ourselves, others, and the earth that is our home. Of course, this means everyone and everything is sacred and should be treated as such. It also means we're responsible for the world around us because, in truth, it is part of our authentic self with a capital S. When I say self, Arthur and I will get to that in a little bit. Encompassing the whole of the earth. Perhaps there's nothing more important than this, coming to see ourselves as a cell in the body of the divine, the earth, and embracing a role where we care for the earth and the world that we live in. In addition to the Living in Oneness Summit, the focus of today's call, we convene Global Oneness Day, a Spiritual Leadership Award, conscious business programs, service projects globally, prayer and meditation calls, and much more. This program, the Living in Oneness Summit, is now a year-round program. All programs are free and are recorded, so you can listen in for free 48 hours following each call. Each week, we're interviewing key leaders who can share about living in oneness in our own life, with our partner, as a parent raising children in our home, in the workplace, and as a public service leader. Today, we'll talk about living as one in our own life and as a public service leader. Thank you so much for being here for this important call, and please do get comfortable as we get started. I'd now like to introduce our special guest. Arthur Joseph has worked with thousands of actors, singers, politicians, broadcasters, business leaders, multinational corporations, and countless others who have all recognized the significance of empowerment through voice. Some of those who studied under him include Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stephen Covey, Angelina Jolie, Pierce Brosnan, Quincy Jones, and Tony Robbins. From his humble beginnings, treated as an outcast, abandoned by his father, and living only with his working mother, Arthur's life was fraught with uncertainty and emotional pain. Early on, Arthur's life lessons were formed by these experiences of abandonment. As an insecure, confused, and lonely 15-year-old, Arthur began studying voice as an extension of his musical education, which began at the age of 4 when his mother signed him up for accordion lessons. His voice teacher helped him unlock his voice, his life's calling, seeing both his potential and unique gift. Arthur discovered that he heard vocal sound differently than other people. He didn't just hear the pitch, tone, or melody of the voice. He actually heard and felt the emotion within the voice. Arthur calls it perfect pitch. When he hears a voice, he hears who a person is at the core of their being. As he developed an understanding of this gift, he continued to study the inherent connection between sound and vocal expression and devoted himself to the study of vocal technique. Through his relentless commitment, Arthur began to claim his own power. his own self-esteem, and without a doubt actualized his life mission to help others claim their own vocal power and accept and embody their authentic selves. Arthur's education, a combined major of music, philosophy, and psychology, has served as the foundation for his now 40-plus years of teaching and coaching. With the creation of the Vocal Awareness proprietary teaching method, Arthur has worked with leaders worldwide who recognize the significance of empowerment through voice. And welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit, Arthur. It's so great to have you with us.
Oh, it's such a joy to be here. Thank you for that, both that eloquent delivery and heartfelt introduction. Much appreciated, my friend.
Well, thank you. It's so great to be with you. I also been a student with Arthur years ago, and Arthur continues to just be in my heart, and I just love this vocal awareness training because it's really so much what our work is about, which it has such a deep spiritual basis. In fact, Arthur, I thought maybe we could start there. We were chatting in the green room about this speech that Pope Francis gave to Congress earlier today and shared that your work, likewise, has such a deep spiritual basis, and you're not working with people who, in many cases, are religious or who would even describe themselves as spiritual, yet the basis of your work is spiritual. Is that a fair statement?
Almost. The basis of my work is mastery. And mastery in any form requires the integration of mind, body, spirit. And we know this in the arts, we know this in athletics, but we don't know this in communication. We don't know this when it comes to addressing our own voice. I was just sharing with Steve when he was in the green room. I had an earlier conference call today with a dear friend, student, commissioner of the National Football League, Roger Goodell. And whenever commissioner goes out and speaks, as he will be doing later today, he begins every conversation with a conscious, loving breath, embodying the first of the 7 rituals of vocal awareness, to say thank you to Source, to embody ourselves in stature. My point being, and Steve shared this with me a few minutes ago, today when Pope Francis was speaking before Congress, he was speaking about the self. And in vocal awareness, whenever I speak about what I refer to as the deeper self, self is always spelled with a capital S. So in today's remarks that Commissioner will be delivering, he will be embodying to the best of his ability his deeper self through a conscious, loving breath. Tomorrow when I am in New York, I live in California, but will be in New York tomorrow, working with various executives, both at leadership positions in broadcasting and in a global multinational corporation. We will begin with stature, conscious, loving breath, thanking Source, embodying who we are, taking responsibility not just for the message, but the messenger. And at all times, staying connected to the best of our ability to Source self. And we do that in vocal awareness when we remain in stature, when we sustain the conscious loving breath, and we are there for ourselves as conscientiously, in as much conscious awareness as possible at all times, every day.
Beautiful. I should share, when I first met Arthur, the year was 2005. I was then in Silicon Valley. I was part of an organization called the Young Presidents Organization. They had a university that was on an Alaskan cruise. And I walked into the room where Arthur was speaking to these business leaders from all over the world. And Arthur was sharing right at that very moment that we must, does anybody mind, he said, if I use the word God? Because I'm going to talk about conscious connection with God in breath. And I thought that was quite courageous to, right at the beginning of his program, frame the program that way.
Well, it's because it is mastery, as I've said, everything begins and ends with that. I don't know, I trained a great number of world-class athletes, Hall of Famers, Olympic gold medalists, etc. And I don't know one of them, literally, who does not have a ritual before they compete. I myself am a classical singer by training. I don't know a performer who doesn't have a ritual in the wings before they come out. Now, all that being said, is not one of these individuals, their ritual is not merely mechanical. It is spiritual as well. In this work, there is no off switch. This isn't about a performance moment, a competitive moment. This is about living in the truth, the integrity of who we are. I share so often, Steve, and you perhaps have heard me speak about this before, but none of us got to whatever stage of life we're at unscathed. This journey is not for the faint of heart. It takes real courage to live this journey. In my latest book, Vocal Leadership, that I'm honored to say Commissioner Goodell actually wrote the foreword for, I speak about the hero's journey. And we've all heard of Joseph Campbell, no matter what part of the world we're in. He was a great mythologist. And his concept of what he called the power of myth. Well, I quote a little bit from him in this book, but for me, the hero's journey is not mythical. This is not Perseus lopping off Medusa's head and then creating a metaphorical picture from that. This work is about our own hero's journey. What does it take to be our hero in our own narrative? One of the most important ingredients in the recipe of life is time. For when it's gone, you never get it again. How much time do we squander on a daily basis worrying about what others might be thinking of us? Oh, I hope I'm approved of. How did I do? Why do we want to go to that place? Why not instead begin the conversation with identifying who we are? In vocal awareness, it is called our persona statement. The root of that word, persona, means through the sound. How do I want to be known? First, to myself, and then by extension to others. Then we learn how to be in the work, not merely present the work. It is not for approval, as I've said. It is claiming our own moment as fully conscious as possible. In the back of this latest book, I have several appendices, and one of them is root sources of myriad words. And we've heard that everything is a presentation. that job interview, asking somebody on a date, sitting down with the boss. Everything feels presentational and consequently can also feel unsafe or inauthentic. So I just looked up the word presentation in my book, and it literally means to introduce formally, to bring before the public. What I'm teaching in vocal awareness, in a public context, not in a more intimate social setting, but in a public one, everything is a performance. Now, that word is misconstrued quite often to mean inauthentic, but quite the opposite. It is a performance because someone is watching, someone is listening. You're listening to this call right now. So I understand from the root of the word that performance actually means to begin and carry through to completion, to carry out, fulfill. My responsibility is to fulfill my mission statement, which is to help all those I work with to achieve their own enlightenment and enjoy their own empowerment, and to embody my persona statement, and to integrate it into everything I do. The roots of the word integration and integrity have the same root source. They actually mean wholeness. So embodying myself at this consciously attuned level enables me more effectively to be myself. 3 words, not 2, and the word self begins with a capital S. To be myself. Never presenting, simply always embodying. As Steve knows, I don't come up for air very often, but as he also promised, this is interactive, and I do love teaching, and I would love to see what you have to say about what I'm saying, Steve, if I'm providing you the insights, the teachings that you would like, if there's anything you want to share, or anybody who has any questions.
Thank you, Arthur. It's beautiful. I didn't even think to want to come in. As you were talking, you were just consciously embodying yourself with, and of course that means Spirit is speaking with you and through you. It was just beautiful. So many nuggets of wisdom in what you were just sharing. There are some comments, and Mariana in Limassol, I'm not sure where this is. I'm not familiar with all of the countries and communities. Of course, we are a large global community in over 150 countries, but she says, I do wish to participate in this event. And we have a great audience here with us now, Arthur, too. I want to invite others to, if you have comments and questions for Arthur that you'd like us to get to during the hour, please do feel free to put them in the window on Instant Teleseminar so we can bring them into Arthur.
And is there a way also to hear their voice or not in this podcast?
We occasionally will do that. We do have a large group also on the phone. I think is it 1 or 2? I'll ask my partners. I've got Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Penny Heipel, and Monica Augustine here running this program with me.
Star 2.
It's 2. Star 2? Star
Correct.
2 to put your hand up. Okay.
So if Marianne or anyone, however they want to ask a question, I'm here obviously to bring as much value as I possibly can.
Thank you, Arthur. We're off to a strong start here. I wanted to mention for people that came on late, because the call is building, we've got people coming on even as we speak. We're talking about Arthur's latest book. It's called Vocal Leadership. Arthur was sharing of some of these terms that are in the appendix of the book. I've actually got the book opened up here in front of me. It was one of the things I wanted to get to, actually, during the call, and Arthur, you went right to this here early in the call. I love that the appendix has, again, so many spiritual principles. Arthur is working with world leaders, people in the entertainment industry and media, etc. The anchor accountability is one of the terms in the appendix, and it says, deeper listening means to listen to my deeper self with a capital S, my inner voice. When I live in deeper listening, I live in the integration of mind, body, spirit. There are so many references like this in the appendix. Responsible, respectful, reasoned, reflective also has a really beautiful comment, as does honor, honorable, being, be, and here it talks about one's essential nature, consciousness, conscience, paradigm, teaching the paradigm shift, self-esteem, again bringing in myself with a capital S. Spirit is talked about, source is talked about, virtue, where Arthur talks about moral excellence. These are only a few of the things that are referenced in this incredible book. It's called Vocal Leadership. It's a fabulous book. I highly recommend it. As Arthur mentioned, it's forwarded by Roger Goodell, who's the commissioner of the National Football League. Arthur, you brought in vocal awareness technique, including some things that I shared with you before the call, that I have taped to this area in my office where I do these calls. Conscious Loving Breath is taped to this podium that I use for these calls. You shared. It's something that's essential to vocal awareness. You also talked about stature. These are two of the key elements of vocal awareness. Can we talk about these a little bit, and even
Absolutely.
if there's an experiential exercise that you want to bring in?
Absolutely, and thank you for getting me back to that. And it reminds me, of course, that the root of the word spirit, such a fundamental word, such a fundamental understanding for humanities team. The root of the word spirit, spiritus, means to breathe. So if I ask, and also in that regard, I wanted to say one more thing, and then I'm going to ask us to experience some of the work. As something we are not always cognizant of, we settle for how people speak or how we speak, because speech is habit. But this is communication mastery. This is the integration of mind, body, spirit. And we actually have a choice as to how we want to communicate, a choice in how we want to be known. And when you listen to me, just see how my voice makes you feel. What is conveyed through the vibration, through the energy of the sound. See how it makes you feel when I speak with you, because it is the same for all of us. And an opinion is created in 3 seconds, means there's no warm-up time. So what I'm saying on this call right now, what Steve is saying, you can feel in the essence of what we're saying and how we're communicating what we perceive to be the truth about us. It's vibrational. It's energetic. I say on page 173 of this book that Steve was referencing, be like the rock that when thrown into the pond doesn't merely make a splash and then sink to the bottom. Instead, that splash, large or small, sends concentric rings across the pond, impacting everything they come in contact with. Through this work, just as the rings energetically extend across the surface of the pond, you too have the opportunity to make an impact. It is inevitable. Seize it. If one person can make a difference, imagine what millions together can do. Clearly, that is Steve's mission through Humanities Team. And that is my mission, enrolling people in what I call the Human Achievement Movement. Not potential, achievement. Helping us commit to claiming and being our best, because we are here to make a difference. So let me ask you all right now to sit up nice and tall. Now, just go back and relax again. And you'll notice perhaps when you sat up nice and tall, sit at attention, try it again. The body's impulse is to hold its breath. But if I ask you now to embody yourselves as men and women of stature, recognizing the divinity within you, and feeling a thread pull from the top of your head, it's a continuous pulling of that thread. It is not static. Your neck and shoulders loosen. Your tongues and jaws loosen. You will notice that the first impulse is to inhale. Now, while in stature, not letting yourself tighten your tongue, your jaw, your neck, or shoulders, as I've said. While in stature, within yourself, not aloud, say thank you to Source. Say thank you to God. And once again, you will notice the body's first instinctive impulse is to inhale. You will also notice that your internal space and your external space are quieter. It is also a form of feeling safer, feeling the sanctity of who you are, and the sanctity of the space you're in. Then I would like you to take a nice deep top of the morning breath. It's great to be alive. Take that nice deep breath. And now exhale. Now going forward, forget about taking a nice deep top of the morning breath. Instead, tune into these words. Do not any longer take breath. Rather allow a slow, silent, loving breath. For you see, a breath is not only physical, it is also emotional. So now, while remaining in stature, feeling your connection to Source, please allow a slow, so slow, no rushing, silent, conscious, loving breath. And exhale. Then we add sound, a little warm-up. There are many warm-ups in vocal awareness, but here's a simple one you can do anywhere, anytime, without calling attention to yourself. It's called finding the hub of my voice. My lips are gently together. My fingernail may or may not be placed on the edge of my top lip. By the way, there are impeccable pictures in the book that show all of these and other techniques. And I gently hum very nasally because that enhances resonance when we do it in this format. Very nasally, the sound of hum. Listen to how I do it. And wherever that pitch ends up, as mine just did now, that's where we begin speaking from. Let's all try that together. In stature, Source, never rushing a breath, deeper, loving, silent, and begin. And after the next one, the phrase I would like you to share is, I am an extraordinary person, and I do extraordinary things. But notice how I do it. I actually see the words I say. It's called visceral language, another vocal awareness technique. Listen. I am an extraordinary person, and I do extraordinary things. And we can emphasize a different word every time, but the point in part is that each and every time I reconnect to the rituals, because it's beginning to take me out of my behaviors, because I'm teaching here. We are not simply our behaviors. That's what we do. But a behavior is not necessarily who we are. I'm taking us back to a very primal place where it is safe to be who we are. We always connect God to the exercise because we want always to feel the sanctity intra and interpersonally. Never do these exercises like they're calisthenics. It's more like ballet, like the artist at the bar. This is art. So the sentence once again is, I am an extraordinary person and I do extraordinary things. If you can, put your fingernail on your top lip. It's not important you understand any of this at this point. It's just for an experience. In stature, thinking about a word from a persona statement that you want to embody that identifies something excellent about yourself. Find that word. Feel source. Release any tongue, jaw, neck, shoulder tension. Allow a slow, silent, loving breath, deeper, and we're going to hum together. Then going to allow another loving breath and say the sentence and see a key word underlined. I am an extraordinary person, and I do extraordinary things. Let's stop with that for the moment. Is that all right, my friend?
Beautiful. I don't want to speak for others on the call, but I'm imagining that experiential exercise was really valuable. So many things that you said, Arthur, too, as you were sharing this exercise, that we're not doing this for anybody else, and we're doing it for ourselves, and that there's no off switch here, that we're being authentically who we are. And you shared that this helps pull us out of our behaviors, which is not who we are. We want to come back to our essential self. It's beautiful. It's really a recipe. You call it vocal awareness, but it's really a recipe for living, isn't it?
Yes, it is vocal awareness, which I coined over 50 years ago. This is the 51st year of my work. Simply says we become aware of what we're doing. If it's positive, enhance it. If it's negative, get rid of it. But then I coined another term I call conscious awareness. We all strive for consciousness, and we all strive to be in awareness. But conscious awareness means we are attuned to our consciousness at all times. We are aware at all times, and I call that being in conscious awareness. So when we do these exercises, we strive to not rush them, because we're rushing ourselves. we strive not to do them like push-ups or jumping jacks, but more attuned with the mind, body, spirit reality you hear me speaking of, because that is mastery. And the reminder that we're always going to have a tendency to rush. I know without even having heard today's address, I have heard others, and I will look forward to hearing the Pope's address to Congress. It's not merely what the Pope says, it's how he says it. Several years ago, I was at a Yom Kippur service that at a synagogue I had not been to before because I wanted to hear the Rabbi Emeritus. He was the founder of the synagogue 65 or so years ago, and he was then about 92, and had actually in earlier time walked arm in arm with Dr. King. And I was right in wanting to go because Rabbi could have been reading the phone book, because the sound of his voice was so impactful that even reading the phone book, he would have moved me. Inside what he said and how he said it was the wisdom of 90-plus years of living. But when we hear others speak, we may only hear the data streaming, the words, and we don't hear inside the energy, the integral commitment and connection that I know had to have been very present today because, quote unquote, the Pope doesn't have an off switch. And I want us to take ourselves that joyously, seriously as well. To really believe in our possibility and living in the divinity, not just paying lip service to it, not just being there in a moment of prayer or meditation, but taking it into every social setting, at the dinner table, in a nightclub, I don't care where it is, at the board, in a boardroom, in a business meeting. This is where we want to take this work, where we live it. We don't just practice it in private and then turn off the switch and go about our day habitually behaving as we always have. Anybody want to chime in, Steve?
Beautiful. I'm going to bring in a question and a comment. Before I do, I wanted to share, I did, as I mentioned in the green room earlier, I did get to catch the first 30 minutes of the Pope's speech to Congress, and just as you shared, Arthur, he absolutely was in a conscious awareness, and he didn't rush. He talked very slowly, very deliberately, used his whole body language to communicate key points such as caring for humanity and the earth. It was absolutely a presentation in mastery, in vocal awareness. Let me get to a statement here first and then a question. Let's see, we do have a hand up here, a couple people with their hand up as well. We'll go ahead and bring in at least one of the listeners on the line here in just one second. One of the statements is from Grace in Vancouver, Canada, and Grace says, "Love this talk with Arthur Joseph. As a funeral celebrant, I have experienced the embodiment of which Arthur speaks. However, I hadn't heard this phenomenon expressed in this way. Thank you. I will buy Arthur's book." Thank you, thank you. Grace, thank you so much for that comment. This question, Arthur, I don't have the person's name, and it's not really about vocal awareness, but it is about self-esteem and standing in our authentic self. The question is, what would be your advice when you want to find common ground with all people you meet? So I, many times, and one-on-ones or in groups, I do not share my opinion because I want to be supportive of others and their perspective. It seems I have people that talk to me because I am a good listener, and I also have my point of view I want to share, but I find I don't always share for different reasons. That's from Alanja in Sacramento, California.
That's a meaningful observation, and thank you for sort of speaking about the elephant in the living room. Self-esteem is something we all want to embody. Vocal awareness is trademarked, but also empowerment through voice is trademarked. The sixth of the 7 rituals in vocal awareness is pay attention, deeper listening. We always want to pay attention to everyone who is in our presence. That is respectful. We also want to listen deeply simultaneously within ourselves so that there is synchronicity at an energetic level. And we are honoring both the one we are speaking with, or those we are speaking with, as well as ourselves. What am I saying here? What I'm saying is we have to actually practice being ourselves sometimes and giving our permission to state a point of view. If I were speaking to a great athlete, a great artist, and I would ask them to tell me about their skill set, they would not deflect it. They would not say that their talent was mediocre, or no, I can't really say anything. They know what they have accomplished is superior in their form. But us, what I describe as mere mortals out here who don't necessarily play on these huge stages all the time, we get mixed messages. Oh, you shouldn't act like that. What will people think? Don't say that. That sounds arrogant. So if I say to you, vocal awareness is extraordinary work. It can help you change your life in a matter of moments. Now that sounds stupid and arrogant. But if I say to you, vocal awareness is extraordinary work. It can help you change your life in a matter of moments. That is not arrogant. That is my truth. So summarizing my thought about your statement, we need to give ourselves permission to say, do, and be in the moment. It is not arrogant to do so. We can still be significant listeners and help others feel comfortable in our presence. But we also have a right to participate and share our points of view without seeking approbation or anything, merely because we choose to.
Beautiful. By the way, I got the person's name wrong on that question. That actually was from Monica in Colorado. The question from Alanja in Sacramento, California was, what a beautiful presentation. Does Arthur work with damaged vocal cords in his practice?
Oh, yes. I taught at a retreat facility in Big Sur, California for about 16 years called the Esalen Institute. And I used to do week-long seminars. And at the conclusion of the week, I had something I called closing ceremony, where everybody in the course had to share something about the value of the week, but do it fully embodying vocal awareness to the best of their ability. And at one of these week-longs, one of my private students came who I had been teaching for 2 or 3 years, who had come to study with me earlier and was saddled with severe spasmodic dysphonia. It's a really, really challenging vocal issue. And hard-pressed to get a full sentence out without great difficulty, for example. Well, we helped heal him through singing. pressure flow, the mechanics of this work, etc. And he was having great success. He'd even joined a choir, etc. And then at closing ceremony, part of his contribution was playing an audio tape from his first lesson, which I had totally forgotten what he had sounded like. And there was, as we say, not a dry eye in the house, because the man speaking that day was fundamentally different from the individual we heard on this recording. And it was deeply moving, and also exemplifies one of the reasons I do this work. We're here to help make a difference. So yes, vocal awareness helps us with whatever vocal challenges we may have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arthur. If you go to Arthur's site, vocalawareness.com, that's vocalawareness.com, you'll see on Arthur's site, near the top of the site, it talks about voice training for a higher purpose. I love that, Arthur. Also, we've been talking about Arthur's book. It's called Vocal Leadership, 7 Minutes a Day to Communication Mastery. I'm sure you can buy this book from Amazon, right, Arthur?
Oh, absolutely.
Wonderful. Let's bring in one of our listeners that has a hand up. There were two that had a hand up here on the call. Nanette Kennedy and Dee Meyer, my partners, are running this part of the call. Nanette and Dee, could you bring one of the listeners in, please?
Yes, I will. We have someone from San Rafael, California, with their hand up.
Yes. Hi, this is Suzanne.
Hello, Suzanne. How are you?
Oh, I'm so grateful to be alive and be on this call.
Well, isn't that lovely? Would you say that again? And please, in stature, and please allow yourself to inhale before you say it.
Thank you.
Allow it deeper, deeper, and the same thought.
I am so grateful to be alive and to be on this call.
Did you feel the difference?
So much.
Do you have a question, dear Suzanne?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to that breath right there as well.
Yes. My question is, I work with my voice, and I couldn't sing until I was 30, and now I teach people how to sing, and I'm very dedicated to the field. And I'm also very aware that I have habitual tendencies in my voice from my family tones that aren't my authentic voice, and also that I speak in a deeper tone so that I'll be taken seriously as a woman. Does that feel like to be in a higher resonance? So I'm looking to work on that, but staying with authenticity and not forcing something upon my voice. So I would love any suggestions that you have.
Well, there are many, and thank you for even the conscientiousness of your deeper listening as you were making your statement and asking your question. You were tuning in, and this is as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Suffice it to say that this singing technique is fundamentally different than anything you know. It's more like a ballet lesson than the traditional voice lesson. Mm-hmm. When you've taught exercises or learned them, there's a tendency to go, ya, 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 for example. You're just warming up. But in vocal awareness, that same exercise would be more like, ya, 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 ya. Very different on every level. So there is one of my CDs called Sing Your Heart Out, which comes with accompaniments and all of that. And the whole philosophy, my books, this one, for example, all discuss singing. The other thing to explore when you discuss authenticity, and this may raise the hackles of every voice teacher on the planet or voice coach, I teach in this work there is no such thing as head and chest voice. When that concept was first created 200 plus years ago by Garcia, the great vocal pedagogue, it meant something different than we've come to understand these days. And what happens when we think like this is it diminishes. We get to a certain note in our voice and we shift. And so we lose energy. We become trapped in another paradigm. And so in this work, we really, I call it the plie. We really learn how to use pressure flow to build muscular strength through the passaggio, and also learn how to gain confidence in exposing quote-unquote weakness, which isn't weakness, it's merely lack of development, and learn how to make ourselves vocally stronger and emotionally stronger and spiritually stronger all at the same time by taking certain risks and learning to listen more profoundly to what the voice and the technique can do for us. I record all of our lessons. Everything, I would encourage practicing on video, on your mirror, and going so slowly you might need toothpicks to keep your eyes open for a breath. It's a very, very different process. But, and am I even providing any value in answering your question, Suzanne?
I think we might have taken her off of speaker, but I can assure you, Arthur, that you did. That was really beautiful, and thank you. We've got only about 4 more minutes because I want to share here before the hour is up some coming programs and a couple of other important messages. Let me get to one other question. There are questions, several that have come in since I asked people to.
I apologize, Steve, for not having enough time.
Oh no, we're doing great, and this all is being recorded. This is being sent out with a thank you note to all of the people that registered. Over 15,000 people who registered for this call as well, and this is fantastic. This book of Arthur's I highly recommend. Vocal Leadership, 7 Minutes a Day to Communication Mastery by Arthur Samuel Joseph. And it covers, of course, all of the things that we're talking about on this call and so much more. I highly recommend the book. Here's one other question from Brandon in Austin, Texas. And Brandon says, can Arthur speak to public speaking, particularly tips to heal the fear of public speaking and spiritually move the audience?
Oh, what a great question, Brandon. You know, coincidentally, about 40% of my work is on Skype around the globe. And one of the axioms is the meeting begins before you walk in the room, which is to say, create your persona statement. Practice embodying your rituals. If you're doing PowerPoint presentations, don't just put the slide up and duplicate what is on the slide. If I'm reading the slide, I don't need to listen to you. So provide the value added or have fewer slides. Practice, practice, practice. The old joke of how do you get to Carnegie Hall? There are no shortcuts to excellence. There are no shortcuts to mastery. So at home, practice getting started right is what I call it. Your opening 1 minute, your close. Never memorize, because when you were trying to remember verbatim, you're in memory. You can't be as effectively in performance. Do not simply go from bullets, but write out your script and then distill your bullets from that. I will end with the axiom that I've already stated today. We cannot be too slow. We cannot be too big. And record everything, because when you begin this process, it may feel artificial. But when you listen back, you will actually hear it as far more effective and genuine. So those would be some tips, because I know we have to end our call for today, but I hope that those tips, and again, in the book, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago that led to this latest book. But remember, as you follow the tips in the book or listen to the ones I've just provided here, don't just go through the motions. Really stop to strive to understand and do them as effectively as possible.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Arthur. You can follow Arthur's work at vocalawareness.com. That's vocalawareness.com. And Arthur, I'm going to thank you a few times here. I want to get started just by thanking you now and for sharing these pearls of wisdom, these tips for living as our authentic self, these tips for living in mastery, these tips for living with strong vocal awareness. It is such a powerful practice that you've created, and I just love you so much as a friend, too. And thank you so much for being here. I want to share some programs that are upcoming. I want to start out by talking about something that Humanities team created this year called Community Circle. It's for those who wish to journey to a deeper and richer experience in oneness with the divine and each other. All of our audio links from 2015 and from all of our previous years are there. There are over 250 programs that are recorded and that are in this archive for people who are Community Circle members. We also have a private Facebook page where we support each other. All of the volunteer leaders of Humanities team and people signed up as Community Circle members are invited to this Facebook page. If you go to the humanitiesteam.org website, that's humanitiesteam.org, and go to the top of the site, you'll see a little green button that says Join Us. If you click on it, you can learn about the Community Circle program. We're also offering a free gift right now, which is an hour-long program recorded in May of this year with Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith and his wife, Ricky Byers Beckwith, who received our Spiritual Leadership Award this year. You'll get that hour-long video as part of joining Community Circle, and it's only $10 a month. We created the program as something that is relatively inexpensive because people are on tight budgets all over the world. So that's $10 a month, and it's called Community Circle. Also, we have some exciting programs that are coming up I want to be sure to tell you about. Next week at the same time, Thursday, October 1st, I'll be interviewing Gay and Katie Hendricks, two wonderful people who have been a part of the Living in Oneness Summit once before, and they talk about living in oneness with our partner and in the workplace. They embody it, just beautiful, beautiful people with so much wisdom. That program also begins at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's Thursday, October 1st, and this is the only program we're doing with them this year in 2015. If you go to the livinginone.com site, you can learn about and register for all of our upcoming calls. All of our programs are free, and if you can't be present for the live programs, we do send you a thank you note with a replay for 48 hours of free listening. Also, Global Oneness Day is now just around the corner. Global Oneness Day, of course, is our Earth Day for an awakened humanity. We have so many incredible world leaders who are giving of their time to participate this year. It is on a Saturday this year, October 24th. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Ayanla Van Zandt, Gary Zukoff, Ken Wilber, Marianne Williamson, Gene Houston, Urban Laszlo, Neil Donald Walsh, Panache Desai, Barnett Bain, Doreen Virtue, Patricia Cota-Robles, so many incredible leaders who are part of Global Oneness Day this year. It's a 12-hour program. Again, it's free. We're also sending out a recording for 48-hour free listening if you can't be present for that whole free program. And if you go to globalonenesssummit.org, globalonenesssummit.org, there are three S's in between oneness and summit, you'll be able to read about and register for that program. Also, we're going to be making an important announcement during Global Oneness Day this year. We have been working closely with Urban Laszlo's Club of Budapest and Hero Sanjoy's Goy Peace Foundation, that is Humanities team, has worked closely with these two organizations. We've created a conscious business declaration that we're now reaching out to businesses all over around the world, inviting them to sign this declaration and to support it in their business enterprise. It's an incredible program that will adjust how businesses operate on the earth. Really an incredibly important announcement. We'll be revealing that on Saturday, October 24th, Global Oneness Day. I want to come back and thank Arthur so much for being here with us today. This was an incredibly important call. He's shared so much wisdom. Just gratitude to you, dear friend Arthur. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank my colleagues, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Penny Heipel, and Monica Augustine for running this call. They created the program. They run the back end of it, create the promotions and things. And for that matter, the 40 or so Global Council members, the volunteer leaders who lead Humanity's team year-round. Finally, last, definitely not least, I want to thank each of you, our listeners, for being present here with us today for this important program. Thank you so much. And in closing, I want to invite everyone to really live as one. This is ultimate reality, and the way that we create this awakening or this shift on the earth is to embody it. It doesn't have to be serious. It can be fun. And when we live this way, we support health and well-being for ourselves, for our families, in our communities, and the world. And we invite others to live this way also. Have the most marvelous day, everyone, and we'll see you on Thursday next week. Thanks again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.